I'd like to tell you guys a little story today. When I was a teenager, probably 13 or 14 years old, I had woken up in the middle of the night one night at my dad's house and had a hard time trying to fall back asleep. So I decided to watch some TV in my sister's room in order to try and fall back asleep. It was rather early in the morning, I think probably almost about to become 4 or 5 a.m. And as I was flipping through the channels, I came across Cartoon Network and this really weird thing called Adult Swim. Now, what was on the screen was the last few minutes of an episode of a series that I'd never seen or heard of before. And then once that was over, Inuyasha came on the screen and I decided to watch it and see what that was all about. That is actually how I discovered what anime actually was. And as for the cause of this discovery, it was the last few minutes of a series only known as Wolf's Rain. Wolf's Rain is an original 26-episode adventure sci-fi series from director Tensai Okamura and Studio Bones that aired during the winter 2003 season. An additional 4-episode OVA series from Okamura and Bones was released in 2004, followed by a manga adaptation written by Keiko Nobumoto and published by Kodansha, with Viz Media holding licensing rights in America. As of this review, you can find Wolf's Rain thanks to Bees Entertainment in the UK and Mad Entertainment in Australia. As for North America, it may still technically be under the license of Bandai Entertainment. However, they did stop releasing their series and close their doors at the end of 2012, with many of their shows being relicensed the next year and many others going out of print like Wolf's Rain. However, it is up for legal streaming thanks to Hulu for us US types.
According to an old legend, when the end of the world comes, paradise will appear. However, only wolves will know how to find it. But the wolves are believed to have been hunted down to extinction nearly 200 years ago. What the humans don't know is they still exist, surviving by taking human form. Kiba, a lone white wolf, is searching for that paradise, drawn by the scent of the lunar flower, the key to opening it. Along the way, Kiba encounters 3 other wolves drawn by the lunar flower, Sume, Hige, and Toboe. As they search for the mysterious flower maiden, this pack must be weary of many dangers that stand between them and reaching paradise.
Just so we're clear, this series was made in 2003, making it over 12 years old, but it doesn't look that way to me. Instead, it looks like it could have been produced in the past 5 years or so. That's how amazing the animation quality is here.
Granted, it still has the makings of the old hand-drawn animation compared to what we see now with digital, but there are so many moments where if you didn't know how old the series was, you would possibly mistake it for being a show to come out fairly recently. Much of the animation takes a somber and rather dirty tone with a lot of earthy and grimy colors in order to show the flaws of this world and how much it is falling apart at the seams. But Wolf's Rain also has the ability to give us some beautiful moments and sequences that you just can't help but awe over. If Cowboy Bebop was the beginning of what would later become Studio Bones, Wolf's Rain is probably the height of its early animation work. But while we're at it, let's add the absolutely beautiful soundtrack. Mixing in many acoustic and piano tracks as well as others that give a more tribal sound, it manages to capture many moments and emotions very well. Then again, that's Yoko Kanno for you, so that shouldn't be all that surprising. As for the opening and ending themes, they are fitting both musically and lyrically, which is something I never thought I would get to say. That's because in a very rare turn, both themes are in English. Steve Conte's Stray captures the early parts of the story rather well as the show's opening, while Maya Sakamoto's Gravity is simplistic and beautiful as the show's ending theme, with the song capturing the long journey our leading characters face.
Honestly, go and listen to the ending theme because it's so beautiful that I couldn't skip it even if I wanted to, and I just sang to it every single time. There's a lot going on with the story, but I did find a couple of small problems here and there that others may find. First, really, is that it's kind of a slow burn in the beginning of the series while everything's being established and everything's getting on the move. When I originally tried marathoning the series for the first time a few years ago, I only got through 7 or 8 episodes, so other viewers may run into the same problem. But the second issue I ran into was that there are 4 recap episodes smack dab in the middle of the series, one right after the other. Now, they do recap the series thus far, and even though they're from different perspectives and they add little bits of new footage every now and again, you're better off skipping them all together because they in no way affect the ongoing story. As many people enjoyed telling me over and over again, these episodes are literally made to be skipped. Why else would the OVA episodes exist?
As for the rest of the story, this is where things get a little bit tricky, because Wolf's Rain is one of those series similar to, well, let's use something recent as an example here, Sword Art Online, because you will either love the show or completely hate it, and it's actually one of the ones that's still debated upon even today. The main reason for this is because of the religious undertones that are sprinkled in throughout the series. Although pagan religion is among the most prominent, there are hints of others subtly placed, making it a bit more difficult to pick up on the first watch, unless you know your religions extremely well. But if you look past that, then the story is a very well written tale of a group of outsiders finding their own paradise, while facing many obstacles in the way of getting there. Honestly, there isn't a better way to describe how good it is. If it helps, this series was originally created thanks to Keiko Nobumoto, the same mind who wrote episode scripts for Cowboy Bebop, Samurai Champloo, and Space Dandy, as well as the screenplay for both the Cowboy Bebop movie and Satoshi Kon's Tokyo Godfathers. If you've seen any of these other works, then you can understand when I say Wolf's Rain is a well-written series. The narrative flows really well from beginning to end, with probably the most tragic ending I have ever seen in any anime.
No, seriously, remember how I said you'll cry by the end of Razafon? You will bawl like a baby by the time you finish Wolf's Rain. Character-wise, you can see the classic cliche stereotypes within our four major characters rather easily. There's the leader, the rebel, the comedian, and the wuss. However, I did also notice a different way to classify our major characters based on the kinds of wolves we see, which leads us into varying dynamics within the group.
There's Kiba, the wild wolf who puts his pride and goals above all else, but does relax after a while spent with our other three wolf buddies. With Kiba, we most often see him with Hige, who has his own set of instincts compared to Kiba and Sume, which, for spoiler reasons, we aren't going to talk about. Hige, for lack of better phrasing, is the basic survival kind of guy whose main focus is either on food or girls. Kiba and Hige are actually a good dynamic because they can be seen as opposites that will either relax them, in Kiba's case, or help them focus a lot more, like for Hige. Kiba also has a different dynamic with Sume, our resident loner wolf. Because of his rebellious streak, along with the early fights about pride, these two are forces that tend to oppose each other on several occasions, and then slowly become the closest out of any one of the major characters. Though Sume's relationship to Toboe comes at a very close second. If Sume is among the wilder side who has no trust for humans whatsoever, Toboe is his opposite as the more domesticated wolf who lived with an older lady for much of his life until she passes away. Toboe is able to understand the love someone has for a human, but is still very naive in the ways of the world, which is where Sume comes in to fill that void, while Hige teases the little runt and Kiba is there for additional support. Between these four, they start out as a band of unlikely misfits that slowly, over time, become brothers to each other and push each other along.
However, they aren't the only ones involved because there is a group of secondary characters with their own stories to tell. However, more often than not, they're just used for exposition dump for the viewer because, our main pack isn't gonna actively research what's going on, or there are secondary characters that join the main group as plot elements.
The major exception to this is our main antagonist Darshia, as he comes rather close to anti-hero status at some points because of his motivations as to finding paradise for himself. But then you realize there's no way he could ever be the anti-hero because of all the shit he's pulled.
I may or may not get a little flack for this next comment, but I think it's rather accurate. I believe that the dub of Wolf's Rain is better than the dub for Cowboy Bebop. Come at me, bro! Okay, I say this, but it's only probably by like a small margin. The big reason for this is because of Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who directs both the Cowboy Bebop dub as well as the Wolf's Rain dub. That woman knows what the hell she's doing.
As such, we have a very veteran cast coming into play here. Leading the pack
see what I did there?
Is Johnny Young Bosch as Kiba, Crispin Freeman as Sume, Joshua Seth as Hige, and Mona Marshall as Toboe. These four play their respective roles and character types rather well, with Bosch's Kiba having the longest adjustment time period for me. Sherry Lynn's Cheza kept a rather alien tone, which worked for the character, while Jessica Strauss's helped give a different perspective to our pack of misfits in more ways than one. Kari Walgren's Cher and Robert Berthold's Hub, along with Tom Winder's Quint, helped keep the secondary human characters interesting despite being the major exposition dump. As for Steve Blum's Darcia, compared to some of his other work, this is among the more devious and crazy ones.
I mean, 10 times more devious than Bebop Spike and 1,000 times more crazy than Samurai Champloo's Mugen, and every second is wonderful. Overall, an outstanding dub that can really compete with Bebop's game-changing one. When we have reached our own paradise, Wolf's Rain is absolutely beautiful in nearly every single way. Out of the 5 video reviews I had to make for this countdown to 100, it's the one with animation that holds up the best today. It has a well-written story and very developed characters, and it even has a dub that can rival Cowboy Bebop's. Although there are some parts that may or may not be difficult to understand, and some of the religious themes may not settle well with some viewers, I think this show may or may not be perfect. I mean, the only things that I came across that were problems were those recap episodes and the early burn in the beginning of the story, making coming up with a final rating for this show extremely difficult. But after a lot of thought, I can't give this series anything less than a full 10. If you skip the recap episodes and push past the early ones, you will find a beautifully made anime series that will strike a chord with the viewer in one way or another. Next time, we reach the mythical 100th review. I wonder what it's gonna be. Until then, otaku on, my friends.